Hello, 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 beautiful people. Welcome back to another episode of the USL Show. We hope you had a wonderful Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and a happy New Year, of course. Whatever you celebrated, or if you didn't celebrate at all, we hope to celebrate with you tonight as we kick off 2025 with a bang. And to the person that, if you are just a new viewer, you have never seen before, formerly known as Wally, Ryan, it's good to see you again, buddy.
Yeah, it's good to be back on camera. I figured now was probably a good time to upgrade the 4-year-old laptop that I had, and that was the crux of the past year that the camera just was refusing to operate. So, newer model, but yeah, back online and ready to say that Union Omaha would certainly win the SEC if they tried.
John, man, how are you?
Doing really well. It feels like it's been forever since we've been on mic. So, yeah, happy to be back up.
And if you are not in the live chats for these shows, you really should be. But the chat is absolutely loving seeing Ryan. So go show some love to Ryan and to the YouTube and all that kind of jazz. But before we get into the New Year's resolutions, we of course have to thank our wonderful, wonderful, wonderful patrons. So I want to go ahead and thank Madcat Peel, Andrew Towsley, All of the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, and MOS NF Reg 30, Tim Knox, Rian Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telfer, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Forbes, Christopher Cohn, Aaron J, Frank Anthony, John Hunt. Thank you for posting our thing onto Reddit, by the way, and Harry Austin. Thank you guys so much for supporting us in everything that we do. We really cannot do this stuff without you. So, what is this episode? What are we doing? We are doing New Year's resolutions. And yes, some of them are for me, some of them are for you, but we are saying specifically for the clubs and the league. So there are some teams that need to buy a new striker and they just been dragging their feet on it. Hey, it's a new year, new you. Go buy that striker. Some of these clubs need to mend some, fan interactions. That was a lot of comments, and we'll get there. Hey, front office, it's a new year, new you, and it's time for you to fix some relations. And our guy Ben in the chat is can't believe haven't seen you in a year either, man. But we got to see Pedro on the timeline, and that's all that matters to us. So just so everybody gets the idea, I want to just kind of open this up, and this is where again I have some names for some of these, and we'll just go on with it. And some of these I'm going to be kind of teasing to John's article that was on Backheeled, and you should check that out. It's like $5 and it's quality. You should check that out. But this is kind of allude to his article, but also I kind of thought of it beforehand, and it's one of the ones that I kind of agreed with him on. And listen, this is the Detroit City. I want those out to you. I love you guys. You are great. You are wonderful. And to all the fellas out there, it's okay to be, thinning, losing some hair. I get it. I'm going through it. It's all right. There's nothing wrong with going a little thin up top. But the one place you cannot be thin up top is if you're a soccer team. I want Detroit City to sign me a striker. Give me one. We need some firepower up top. You lose Maxey, and you'll say, Maxey isn't a striker. Yeah, but he was the reason the striker scored. So you need to get some firepower up top. You need to get somebody to get the ball to Ben Morris and get another striker while you're at it. Detroit City, stop going thin up top. Get some soccer Rogaine, buy a striker.
Two things on the Detroit point. I had to get a midfielder for Detroit. So I think there's a lot to address if you're Detroit City, kind of thinking about your resolutions in the new year. And especially given like Maxey's gone, James Murphy is gone. I think Ryan Williams is unsigned at the moment. Like they've got nobody in the middle. And you mentioned Ben Morris, who really came on strong. I think ended up tied with Maxey with 10 goals last season. He's somebody I'd still argue is best playing off of a more traditional number 9. Like especially if Danny Dichio runs back the 3-4-3 and you've got Morris kind of in that right winger, run in the half space kind of spot, give him a partner and this team can really cook and build on what was a fantastic year one for the new regime.
And if you look through John's very helpful free agent tracker, there are a lot of available quality forwards that you have out there. We could have Christian Valesky join an 8th USL team in his career, but you also could get a Cal Jennings and Augie Williams as an option out there. So it's not for a lack of missing players. You could also throw in like a Nico Brett from a now defunct Memphis 901 as well as viable options who could lead your front line for Detroit.
Before, I use all of mine up and I really rely. What are some resolutions you guys have for the different clubs?
Yeah, I kind of want to point to one that we got it as a response in the Reddit thread from somebody who's frustrated that USL Milwaukee hasn't said anything. And I think I want to kind of broaden the scope there and see if we've got Kayla rocking Milwaukee gear. Look at that. But I think for any expansion team that's saying they're coming into the league and really wants to kind of build up that support, start now, start in 2025, host community events, get out there and make yourself known, communicate regularly with the fans. I think that's something we've seen Jacksonville do really well.
Yeah.
Where even though they've kind of been delaying the timeline, people aren't really upset about it because they're open about the process. They've been hosting events, trying to get their inroads into the city. That's how you lead by example within the community. And I think every expansion effort should take a page out of that notebook.
And you saw that echoed just across a lot of that Reddit thread. There is a Tampa Bay Rowdies fan who said they wanted to improve their marketing within the area, within the city. Hartford Athletic fans kind of echoed that their ownership doesn't need to meddle in things that they shouldn't have any business from. We saw people who were upset with Phoenix Rising this past season that they needed to improve. And Monterey Bay was another one that stuck out to me as well, who actually did take a very small step, I guess, in terms of their 2025 goals of just simplifying their branding with their new club mark, just like they were Justin Timberlake within the Social Network movie. Just drop the union and just do Monterey Bay. It's cleaner and simpler. So, I mean, it still remains to be seen. Anyone can just change their word mark or just update a logo within a season. It does take an actual effort from the front office to go through and start mending those kind of strifes and like building those bridges back with the supporters.
I am about to ask a really dumb question. Was there a union for Monterey Bay? Was that like a part of?
Well, I mean, it was the giant word on the crest was union, but they occasionally went by the union as like a nickname, but no one never really adopted it. They never really leaned into it. And then MLS sued them for infringing the Philadelphia Union's copyright.
So, funnily enough, on their website, their team logo has updated now to Monterey Bay FC. But if you click on our crest, which is still a live link, it shows an entire video that talks about the Monterey Bay FC Union. Kayla, I just put it in our chat. If you want to pull it up, you'll see what I mean.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been following this league for a long time. We've even done Crest tier list. No idea. Not a clue that Union was on there. No clue.
I like it as a concept. I think kind of speaking to what we've been talking about, maybe the execution and the marketing weren't quite there for it, but it's also a little bit astroturfy, dare I say, of like kind of let the fans figure out what you want your little moniker to be without trying to foist it on them. I don't know.
Is the union part of the Monterey Bay logo going to be our Mandela effect for the USL?
Yeah.
Where is the Berenstain Bears? I promise. Anyway, there's one club, and it's funny because we talked about this on Soccer Down Here on Tuesday. And there's another club that we've talked about this before, and it is Santa Barbara, where they show up, they say, we exist, and we say, that's great. And they'll disappear for 9 months. And then they'll come back and they say, we're playing at UC Berkeley or UC Santa Barbara. Awesome. And then they disappear. And then they come back 6 months later and say, in 2 years, not next year. And we're like, we assume so, but thanks for the update. And they disappear. And then they'll come back after 8 months and say, we're now Memphis. And then they are going to disappear. And it's kind of what they do, and it's absolutely infuriating. And you mentioned Jacksonville. I mean, they have their Jacksonville pod that they put out pretty regularly. They are active in their community. If there is a single match going on in the Jacksonville area, it could be middle school to, high school, college. They're posting about it. They're talking about it. It's great. Jacksonville's killing it on that front. I think that there's a lot of clubs who exist that need to take a little, note from Jacksonville right now, because some of them are not active in their communities. And this kind of ties into what we talked about. And it was especially Phoenix and San Antonio fans that were really beating this drum of like mend these fan relationships. And part of mending those relationships is being present, having conversations, be transparent. And when I think a lot of people say they want transparency, some people would love for the coach to get onto the stand and say, everything is wrong, everything is bad, it's my fault, it's their fault, we don't finish, I'm bad at training, we just don't have the facilities, whatever. And some people will like that. But in all reality, when people want transparency, all they want is someone to get up there and say, hey guys, we screwed up and we are going to improve next year. Put your face to it. Don't let it be just a text that's written into an article that we know that's not going to be read. Because if you are on Twitter, now known as X, if you post articles on there, they don't get pushed out to the masses. So the clicks go lower and lower. So you can put your half-felt apologies and they're not going to be read. So there's this little, consequence to things. And I think a lot of fans would just love to see face and voice to what's being said. And if the face and voice just says, we're sorry, we need to be better, I think that would fix so many fan relationships.
Yeah, and that was something with Phoenix Rising in particular, where there was a lot of criticism of specific individuals within that front office, Brandon McCarthy and Bobby Dooley, like getting them in front of cameras as much as possible to own up and say we messed up probably would have been a thing that really kind of tempered what was going on in Phoenix. Obviously, there were some media opportunities. There was a little bit of accountability, but it didn't really go far enough. And I think you saw the results late in the season where attendance dropped off to a visible degree for people who were watching from the outside. I think that there is a little bit of a new lease on life in Phoenix, given the coaching change and everything, but it's really kind of a hot situation nonetheless. So fascinating to see how a club like that, that's typically been pretty well supported and kind of beloved by the supporters there, deals with things going forward.
And if anything, this kind of leads me into what would be just the next New Year's resolution, is that Las Vegas from this past season shows that it's never too late for a team to start mending those bridges with the fan base. And if you get an ownership group that comes in that is passionate about the club, passionate about the league, that you can quickly turn things around. And this leads me into my next New Year's resolution of Las Vegas to find a head coach for the upcoming season, because we are getting into the point where rosters are starting to be developed. And as we saw from this past season, I feel like Las Vegas has somehow become like a fairly attractive job, if you are, for a manager. If you have Jose Batista has the support behind it, and a person that has a roster that took them all the way to the Western Conference Final this past year, that's a very intriguing option for any manager looking into getting another role.
Yeah,
and go ahead on that, Kaylor.
Oh, I was just going to mention Las Vegas really fast, by the way. They are announcing signings, but they're really not signings. It's more or less their roster decisions that they are just rolling out into media graphics later. It's more or less just maintaining the hype that they kind of already have. They don't really have those new signings. I mean, I think they might have announced one or two, but most of it has just been none yet. That's what I thought. It's just been, we did re-sign this guy, and they're just trying to keep that hype. And I thought they did a great thing with that, which, speaking of mending the relationships, Sean Smart, dude was drafted by an MLS team, and people were kind of freaking out. And shout out Burgundy Wave, by the way, for getting some clarification on he is not joining the Colorado Rapids this year. They solely drafted him so they can have the rights to him. So if he's a free agent, they are the first MLS team that gets rights to him, yada, 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 yada. But he was the first player, or one of the first players they announced was returning immediately after an MLS team drafted him. Talk about not letting your fans be on pins and needles on a fan favorite, arguably the best player on the team. They were close to instant about it. Like, no. Sean is back. Don't worry. He's going to be in Las Vegas. I think that was great. That was a masterclass by them.
Las Vegas actually announced everyone that they're doing the graphics about like 2 months ago at this point, and they're just kind of reminding people. But you're dead on about like the timing of, hey, here's the awesome, very Las Vegas specific graphic about Sean Smart. And in general, with the lights, I kind of had this as a resolution as well of show the city that the progress in the first year under Bautista wasn't a fluke. I think for everything we've talked about competitively with this team, like with the progress you saw under Dennis Sanchez, everything about trying to get those supporters back and bringing people back to Cashman Field was equally important there. This was a fan base that kind of felt stung based on the prior regime and some of the gimmicky marketing, the lack of investment. So keep making progress. They've built out the marketing side of things. They've built out the community relations. Keep that up. Get a manager in place that can at least keep this team treading water on the field, and good things are going to happen.
If we're going to talk about other clubs also ironically sticking in the Western Conference, I definitely want to mention the team that's been moving houses this offseason with Oakland going into the Coliseum, that they've made a lot of progress getting that stadium suited for soccer, and there's been very active within the community as well with getting a lot of season tickets. And for the supporters, it's really going to be a fantastic opportunity to really rally around the Oakland roots just after what we saw with the Oakland Athletics having unfortunately left the city. But it's going to be a fantastic chance to really showcase a premier fan base and playing in what was still, I think, a major league facility.
Yeah, and the number that I've seen kind of floated out there for that home opener is floating around 20,000.
Wow.
Already. Yeah. So, like, and this is on top of their stadium that they're allegedly building. That is going to be 15,000. That can expand 20,000 if I read correctly. I mean, Oakland loves Oakland. So that's going to be that. But I mean, in terms of how they have connected to community, you're going to be hard pressed to find many clubs better in the soccer sphere in the U.S., better than the Oakland Roots. They are truly, actually, suck it athletics rooted in Oakland. So it's very impressive what they've done so far.
Yeah, and
I
kind
do
of.
at least remember.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it was a really classy gesture of Oakland retiring Ricky Henderson's number as well, just for someone who meant so much to the city of Oakland.
100%. And I think as you're moving into the Coliseum, talk about a really intelligent gesture to try to kind of win over fans who have the connection to that venue and everything it means to baseball in the city, sports in the East Bay in general. I did want to shout out in the Reddit thread, our friend Ivan, who we actually, Phil and I got to meet when we were up over in Oakland, was pointing out, like, squad building wise for that team, they need to be a little bit more proactive. And I couldn't agree more. I think we've mentioned previously, like, big fan of Kai Green, big fan of Tyler Gibson as people, as players. But if you're trying to build a team that feels very solid in the playoff race, those aren't going to be the difference makers in the end. And hey, Kendall McIntosh in goal, love the local roots of that. Like the idea that you're not afraid to part ways with Paul Blanchett when it's time. But I think there are a couple more things that Oakland needs to do to really put that squad into a good position.
I'm going to give us a new resolution, and I am going to just say, hey, heed the warning, right? This is full on like Christmas Story, you know, the third ghost is coming. Heed the warning, Colorado Springs. Don't lose your best players like the previous champs, and don't replace them. They're off to a great start bringing in Akeem Ward. I think this is a wonderful addition, arguably the best left wing back in the league. But they have a lot more to replace than that. And we saw with Phoenix, they had a talented squad, and it got picked apart by MLS teams, or they got sent back from a loan, and they didn't get them back, and they never replaced it. Heed the warning, Colorado Springs. Replace that talent, because the core is there. You can do it again, but you need to make additions.
I like that you
Yeah.
took this in like a Three Ghosts visiting Ebenezer Scrooge kind of direction.
Watched a
But
lot
no,
of it.
Kayla's right. There's a reason why we haven't had a repeat league champion since 2017, 2018 with Louisville. In fact, 2019 with Louisville was the last time we had a conference winner return to the final the very next year.
Ooh.
The interesting thing, I mean, you think about the losses. Obviously, Ronaldo Damas is kind of the name that steals the headlines just because he's the goal scorer and he's got that championship pedigree. But Speedy Williams is equally important in terms of what he did in that midfield as kind of the glue piece. So far, it's been a lot of kind of fullback focused additions between Akeem Ward and Isaiah Foster coming back in. I half wonder if Ward might switch over to right back just because he's got that flexibility. And Aiden Rocha was covering right back. He's played center mid before. So they're building a team with versatility at a bare minimum. You'd still like, they need a striker for sure. You'd like to see at least a little bit more true depth down the middle. But hey, given what they've lost, the early returns aren't bad.
What about some others? John, do you have some other resolutions you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep it on the field with Indy 11. There are a lot of ways I could go stadium wise, but that's kind of out of their control given what the city is doing. But if you're Indy 11, actually compete. It's been 2019 since you had a team that legitimately looked like they could win the Eastern Conference. You're basically running it back. You've added Bruno Rendon, you've added Pat Hogan and Edward Kizza. There's a lot of talent here. There's a lot of continuity in terms of Sean McCauley's system. Take the step, take the leap, and look like you can challenge teams like Louisville City.
You know, you kind of mentioned Hogan, and I'm going to kind of spin us another direction where I'm going to say, keep it up, Pittsburgh Riverhounds. This is the first time I've seen a returning staff of like more than 8 people for Pittsburgh. And don't get me wrong, I mean, listen, Bob Lilly has already gone out and got his college kid. He's already done it. It's already starting, but I like what they've done. They have early on, they've kept around some of their stars. And yes, you have Hogan, you have kids that they are gone. But the guys that you kind of said, great, they're probably not going to come back because money or whatever the reason be, they kept them. And this newfound sense of keeping the gang together and don't make Lily rebuild this every year, keep us up. I like what I'm seeing out of the Riverhounds right now.
Yeah, and I mean, keeping Eric Dick, keeping 4/5 of the starting back line, give or take, because there was a lot of rotation at center back, and the entire midfield with Walty, Sample, Forbes, and Mertz, that's huge. And we just got the comment from Nicholas as well of leading scorer leaving Pittsburgh, because you can't discount what Kizza leaving means. So long as Pittsburgh can get somebody that gives them 10 to 12 goals, you know that defense is going to be organized. They've got the midfield depth that you really can trust at this point. Like maybe the ceiling is 7-8 seed, very defensive team again, but I don't think anyone's complaining about that at Highmark.
Yeah.
Throwing it out there, bring Nico Brett back.
If Nico can stay healthy,
Yeah.
that would be such a good return home for him. And really health is going to be the big issue. But he is such a lily ball striker, just like when you saw with Dikwa. I mean, it's Carmelo Anthony. I shoot, I don't pass. Like that's what I do. He would be a great return. And honestly, Nico and Keziah Sterling, those two working together would be a fun pairing. Again, if Brett can stay healthy. Speaking of Keziah Sterling, this is really random. If you haven't listened to Backstick Pod, by the way, with Jamil Roberts, good stuff, by the way. They had an interview with Christian Chaney where he was very honest about the Fuego situation, and it was awesome.
Even when they're dead, we cannot help but drag Fuego. Well, I guess they're not dead, but whatever.
Whatever they are. Okay, so let's kind of look at what we have in some of the chats. And one of them is we have Orange and Black Saracast producer Andy. Andy King drops in like, why would they have so many injuries? And this was a lot of Orange County fans say stay healthy this year. I don't know what's going on with Orange County. There's a couple of clubs that are certainly a part of this, where they just seem to get injured every year. Orange County high on that list. Please stay healthy this year, Orange County. Please.
I think part of the weird thing with Orange County is, like, yes, there are the Dylan Powers types who maybe they're at injury risk, but they bring in someone like a Charlie Asensio who doesn't really have the injury history, and he's out for most of the season. There were struggles up top with Thomas Among. Like, I don't want to blame the training staff because not a doctor. Like, I certainly don't have the expertise to do that. But you got to think like something's weird in the water at Orange County.
Orange, Tottenham Hotspur County.
Don't do this. Every time I wake up, it's a new player out 6 to 10 weeks. It's great.
Yeah.
I think with Orange County, real quick, it's kind of trust the pipeline. Inevitably, somebody like a Bryce Jamison is going to be on the move. You've got players in the house already. You've seen or at least heard about some signings on the way that feel like they can really flesh this team out. They have a system down, and as long as they just keep riding it, they're going to keep having good results.
I think to at least bring another one from the comments, and to also mention another new team joining the USL Championship, Michael Fuchs has mentioned that his resolution for Lexington is to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and they keep making signings that make me believe. And I don't want to do this because they hurt me last year, but boy, are they making me believe. And honestly, you have Stocks, who is still around the organization. He's still director of football there. And what he's done is really smart. He said, we are essentially an expansion team that had a head start. He said, new coach, new everything. Nothing worked. Scrap it all. Bring like 3 guys with us, and we are starting over. Their owner's willing to spend. We know that. I mean, that's horse money, baby. But, like they are treating themselves like an expansion team. And I think that's the smartest thing they could have done. And they're really doing well with the start of it.
That's horse money, baby, is the best sentence I've heard all day. That's good stuff right there. I think the thing with Lexington, like beyond the resolutions, is I don't quite know how they're going to play. I kind of dug into some of the Terry Boss Oregon State tape back when the signing was being announced. Kind of a back 3 guy in possession, kind of willing to mix it up defensively, other than the fact that they're going to be pressing pretty high. This roster, as it's built, has a ton of versatility. Like someone like a Danny Barbier could be the left back, could be a center back. Lucas Stauffer can go on either side. We've seen Marcus Epps play everywhere. I like that they're going to give Boss the tools to kind of figure it out, but they've got enough talent that you feel like they're going to get results in the process.
Yeah, and someone else that we didn't mention earlier when we talked about subtractions for Colorado Springs, Speedy Williams. And I kind of mentioned Speedy Williams is kind of like he is your luxury piece if you have other luxury pieces, if that makes sense. He gets the ball to where it needs to go, but you need to have somebody to get him or let him get the ball too, right? And Juf is a great player. Where are you going to play him? Are you going to play him as that kind of 10 role? Are you going to play him as a deeper lying striker? Or are you going to say it's going to be Juf and then Lancaster up top? I don't know. And again, it's that we don't know what the plan is on the field. We can assume that a little bit of Oregon State's coming with him, but what if it doesn't? I think that in order to get the most of Speedy, I still want to see a little bit more, especially in that attacking midfield area. So Speedy can kind of sit back a little bit, play a little bit more quarterback, and make one of those line-breaking passes that he's really good at.
I'm so curious to see like what even happens with the attacking midfield, because they've got Medence, they've got Juf, Epps, Borczak, what's his face, Elliot Goldthorpe, who they brought in from Vancouver, who I think is going to be sneaky good. A lot of players for limited positions, which is always a good problem to have, but feeling, I don't want to say unbalanced, but they've definitely got a very strong core in the attacking midfield and maybe a little bit less in the pivot.
Yeah. What about some others, Ryan? Do you have some more?
Yeah, I guess still going through John's transaction tracker. Just to kind of toss it out there, which team are we being a little bit more concerned about with yet to basically sign players? The Miami FC or North Carolina?
North Carolina, considering the only thing we know about them is that they are losing Bautista. That was the first time they've shown that they were alive in general. At least Miami said 5 guys aren't coming back. We know nothing. We know nothing from North Carolina. And especially with the conversations are they were trying to sell the team anyway. Obviously, they're on the schedule, but that does not give you a lot, if any, hope in how they are going to financially support this team, right? I mean, until they know what is their budget. It could be everybody's on the league minimum, or they could go out there and try to outspend the league like they did a couple of years ago when they won League One. We have no idea, and that freaks me out more than anything. At least Miami has shown us we are going to be a little bit cheap and go for the young kids.
And it's such a marked change in vibe from last offseason in North Carolina, where they're coming off the title campaign, bringing back a pretty solid chunk of that core. And they pretty much announced every player on a 2-year deal or a deal with an option year attached to it. Additionally, from what I've heard from behind the scenes, is pretty generous in terms of the housing and the health and the benefits that really make a difference to players. Compare that to now, where we're sitting here on January 2nd. We've not heard a peep about the roster other than, like you mentioned, Lamar Batista leaving, and that only came out yesterday. It's, I mean, no other way to say it other than concerning from North Carolina. And Miami is Miami. Like, did you expect anything else? Probably not, but still, yeah, North Carolina of the two has to be a little bit worrisome.
April 19th is when both of these teams face off for the first time this year.
And granted, I think North Carolina is going to end up just running back a lot of their core and being pretty good. Like, they're probably going to rout Miami when those teams play just because. But yeah, weird situation as we talk in January.
Can we actually go through with what Phil suggested last year with Las Vegas and just send a camera down to Miami and say, please build this team in 30 days? Like, you have 2 weeks. Please build this roster. Let's just see what happens.
I mean, hey, someone talk to Pitbull.
I'm going to go ahead and throw one out, and we saw a couple of these into the Twitter replies, and it's a personal one. So I'm just going to go get my personal biases out of the way. And I'm just going to go ahead and get the Flirty pickup line. You're the only 10 I see. Go to Tennessee. Get a central attacking midfielder, for the love of God, Birmingham Legion FC. There's 2 really good ones available from Memphis 901. And so go do that. Put, especially one of them, put some hurt feelings aside and say, Bruno, baby, come back. It's okay. Everything's fine. Because, I mean, they haven't had a true 10 in a long time. And you can tell with the scoring production pre and post having 10 in the roster. And I think that it would change a lot of perceptions on how Birmingham fans would view their club.
Would you be happy if they decided Enzo is the 10, we're getting another defensive mid to pair with Kobe in the pivot, and that's the situation?
Not really, because Enzo is more of a 6 or false 9. That number 10, while he's okay there, I do think of the midfield areas, I think that's his weakest area. And you can definitely tell as he's gotten a little older, his touch has gotten a little heavier. The pass isn't as clean as it used to be. I think him being that number 6-esque role, or number 8, where he's allowed to just kind of distribute and make a late run to the top of the box, is what you want from him.
Yeah, 100%.
What about some others?
Right. Yeah, I'm going to hop in here and channel Phil a little bit. We also saw some of this in the Reddit thread. If you're El Paso Locomotive, take some accountability, be upfront with the fans, and show some progress on the stadium situation and the women's team situation. Things were looking real good in El Paso maybe 2-3 years ago. Ever since they struggled on the field, you've kind of seen the decline in communication with the fans and really fan support on the other side of things. Try to mend those holes and try to get back to where you were when things were really cooking.
Yeah, and we got a reply from USL Rhino that just said a Wilmer Cabrera playoff run would feed families, which it will at least feed Phil and his family, which is all I need really. I just want to see him happy again. I miss the twinkle in his eye. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The whole El Paso thing, I like that they brought back Memo. Like that was great.
Sure.
And I believe in the core that they bring back. You look at the names of the players they bring back, and you look at like 4, 5, 6 of them, and you're like, that's a good USL team. But right now they have like the El Paso stench on them. And it's like, are they what they used to be? Or am I remembering 2022, 2023 All Stars? And I know that's not that long ago, but it can fall apart fast. El Paso needs to make some signings. And of course, accountability. Like we said earlier, like just a video that goes out and just says, we're sorry, we messed up, we're sorry, goes a long, long way. And El Paso fans have had to deal with that more than just about any other club as over a continuous period of time.
Yeah, and real quick, just to kind of switch it over to another team in Texas with a little bit of accountability needed. San Antonio on the off-field side of things, we saw some drama with the supporters groups. I know our friend and supporter Harry Austin was talking about it in terms of kind of putting the kibosh on tailgates and situations for supporters to do their thing. I know Caroline Stefko, another friend of the show, was mentioning it on Blue Sky as well. San Antonio needs to kind of figure out how can we let supporters support this team effectively and really make their voices heard. Like there's a reason the Crocketeers are disbanding and not going to be supporting this club because they don't feel like there is that symbiotic relationship between the two sides. So as San Antonio kind of enters an important year in a lot of ways on and off the pitch in the post Alan Marcina era, try to get that relationship right and build in that patience with the fan base.
Because this is a San Antonio team that we've seen be successful. In 2022, they won the league with, in my opinion, or at least in my Ego Ratings opinion, the most dominant team the league had ever seen up to that point. So there is a way to kind of build up this team once more to the heights that they previously had achieved, but it requires a lot of legwork from the front office to make that happen.
I want to go to League One for just a minute. And I want to kind of stay in Texas, Oklahoma, Texoma, whatever it is, announce something. And our friend Alex from League One Updater, he put out there announcement happening, and then he posts later, never mind. Apparently the newsletter was wrong. The other USL League One teams, expansion teams, are killing the game right now. AB Alta, other than Texoma, looks like the weakest one, and they've made killer signings.
I was gonna say like Alta looks like they might just straight up be a title contender. Like their roster is crazy as a core right now.
It's one of those things that you bring in someone who has really high pedigree from England, and you say this is a good start, but that's where it's stopping right now. You're looking at a head coach and say, I believe in that guy, and we have nothing else. And maybe this is another situation where they have the signings, but they're waiting for some federation stuff to come through. This is something that we have to remind people, especially internationals. If they are not from the U.S., it takes longer for teams to announce them because visas, green cards, the whole thing takes a long time to sort out. So that could be what we're waiting on. But if we're waiting this long for internationals, it better be a good, really good international because they are currently way behind the other expansion teams.
100%. And I think in general, with the expansion teams, I think the goal should be patient. Like, you're going to get excited if you're seeing Alta picking up guys with a lot of League One tenure. Same deal with a team like Westchester that's like dropping the cash all over the place. It's not going to be instant. League One teams are hard to play against. This league is always high parity. You aren't going to blow the doors off. So let the coaching staff kind of figure things out. Don't rush and make a change. Like, just let things cook as the course of the 2025 season kind of runs through.
Yeah, and there was There's a little bit of conversation from Union Omaha of someone put in like replacing Pedro de la Bella, which is he officially announced that he's not around?
They retweeted some highlights of him today, so I'm taking that as a soft confirmation he's back, but don't quote me on that.
It's kind of what I figured too. Also, his episode with Backstick Pod was also fantastic. It was really, really good. That's a really just good player pod right now. So I don't know. That's been I've been waiting for all the drops lately. For Union Omaha, because I do want to throw something out there for Union Omaha. You are the defending champs. This is one that I'm really serious about. Give Dom Casciato whatever he wants. Whatever he wants. And in there, put in a massive release clause. You know, I get you see Wraith Rovers and, you know, they had Neil Collins leave, but they got some money for it. If you're Union Omaha, the only way that Dom Casciato leaves is if he retires or you get paid. Pay that man whatever he wants. Put a big old release clause on there because he's either coming with you to the championship when that stadium opens or you're getting a payday. Nothing in between. Lock that man up.
Yeah, that was kind of my whole thing too, of just sign the entire core through 2026 or whenever you think you're going to be making the leap. Players like a Pedro Dolabella, like kind of give them the blank check and just keep them around. And in that context, it's interesting that someone like a Luca Mastrantonio is off to AV Alta. Like, and so many of the big name players, frankly, weren't in that initial roster announcement. So kind of fascinated to see what's going on with Omaha next year.
What about some others you guys have?
Yeah, Ryan, you got one?
Yeah, I guess we'll kind of throw it back into League One with Portland Hearts of Pine, who's been doing everything right, in my opinion, off the pitch. They're looking great. They're doing great signings. The thing is that we've seen all previously in years past within League One, Forward Madison's been famous for this. They do all of this fantastic stuff off the pitch. They have the flashy kits. You got to have that translate to on the pitch. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, John, that some of it's going to be teaching patience for some of the fan base. But we also saw from this past year that Spokane was able to, in their expansion season, make their way into the League One final, and shows that it can be done for an expansion team. So it really is kind of like having that really fine line of having patience, but also having a competitive team that you want to field out there to get fans excited. We saw it with Rhode Island this past year as well, of being a fairly competitive team from the start.
Yeah, and if you're also looking up at the Northeast region for League One, Westchester, again, we talked about really good teams, right? These good expansion sides. Westchester's killing it too. And Hearts of Pine are doing great. But you know, Westchester kind of got killed for their kit release. Granted, it's not very good. And this is where I also have to remind people: don't say Hummel's fell off. Hummel can only do what the club allows them to do. So send anything to the club or something. I don't know. Yeah. But they've done great. They have done really, really well. Again, keep it up. Just keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing and see where that takes you, because early investment gets fans from the beginning. That's all it takes, that early investment, and you're going to have fans for life. If you are slow to invest, if you are slow, heed the warning, Texoma. People don't care from the beginning. They're probably never going to care. That's the unfortunate part of this. It took a long time for Las Vegas fans to start coming back. It took Jose Bautista, a very famous name, to come in to kind of fix things. It's a hard path if you do not get the initial start right.
Yeah, and I kind of want to pivot on that into another League One team in Chattanooga. Look competitive. We're 2 seasons now into this team really being behind the 8 ball competitively. Obviously, that has the knock-on effect in a city with a crowded market where Chattanooga FC is not resting on their laurels and really is going for it on the next pro side. Meanwhile, with Malongo gone, I mean, Mensa's gone. I've heard there are more exits on the way for the Red Wolves. You've got to step it up this year. Make sure you're investing, because I think the Scott McKenzie has some really solid ideas on the sideline for that team. Give him the resources to actually compete and get this city excited about your team again.
Yeah, and that was one of the comments within the USL Pro subreddit of just saying finish the stadium as well. That's a
Yeah.
huge thing for our teams at this level of like it's time to start like making more permanent structures in place, and especially like you had mentioned, John, with this being a crowded market, if the stadium's left unfinished, it seems like it's almost going to be temporary as much as the team is versus Chattanooga FC, who play in the Chattanooga Mocs football stadium. I get that's tough to go up against, but just having a put together stadium goes a long way for showing that we're serious as a team.
Yeah, and not just that, they're also building around there. Like they are building up high rises and other stores. Like they want to be a community hub essentially. They want to build up around East Ridge and continue building it. I mean, it's again just more stuff for the owners to say that we are still invested in this. Because at a certain point, a loss is a loss, and you're just like, well, do we really want to keep investing in this? When I went down to Chattanooga to see the Red Wolf Stadium, it was nice. Like, I mean, their club areas were fine. There's seriously not a bad seating where behind the goal. There's like this grassy knoll that reminds you of just minor league baseball games where you have the berm, that's what it's called, and the kids are playing there, and it's awesome. It's really cool. Continue doing that. Continue building. Just finish the stadium, and like they just. And we've talked about this in the past. USL Chattanooga has been a misstep from the beginning. It is one of the biggest black guys, and as they should wear it very proudly on the USL. Like they have to wear that because they messed up big time with that entire thing. Then last year, you get like what was it, 5 matches, home matches rescheduled because the grass isn't finished, and you'll say, and some of the fans will say, "Well, it's raining." Would you ever believe that it rains in subtropic areas? Does that shock you? You didn't plan for that. It's just one of those things that it's a misstep after misstep. Chattanooga needs to look themselves in the mirror and get it together.
Or build a dome.
Keeping it in League One real quick and kind of in the same spirit. If you're the Charlotte Independents, ride the Carolina Ascent's coattails. That's a team that's averaging about 4,500 fans per game. I'm not going to comment and say that Charlotte's 1,000-ish attendance number is inflated, but I mean, watch a Charlotte Independence game. Meanwhile, like you've got this burgeoning women's soccer sport that is in the same venue. Lean on that synergy and kind of try to raise both ships.
And as someone who lives here in Charlotte, I see a ton of Carolina Ascent marketing around town. If like I went to a run club earlier this week, and just up and down the rail trail, you see stickers of Carolina Ascent at local businesses. Here, I didn't see a lot of that with Charlotte Independence as much. So like find what's working with Carolina Ascent and bring that over to the Charlotte Independence. But to at least talk about from Carolina Ascent and the Super League, I was very excited for the fall season. I thought it was fun to watch and just to keep up that momentum for Run Club. I don't drink rum. And just keep up that momentum for the spring season.
Yeah. This is, and I'm going to say ride the coattails of the Super League, but this is more or less, and then they do a lot of promoting, so that's not what I'm saying. But it's the Super Show, I believe it's the name of it, that they post on YouTube, and it's on Sirius XM, and there's also the All Access on Sirius XM radio with Mike Wise, Devin Kerr. Those two shows, if you don't listen to them weekly, they're amazing. You really should, especially a Super Show. It is fantastic. It is really good. This is for USL HQ. Hi, Nicholas. Find some way to make clips of those, post those onto socials, like get those on. I'm not on Instagram really, so maybe they do post it there, but get it on Instagram, get it on TikTok, get it on Twitter, get it on Blue Sky, get it on whatever it is, because getting those like minute clips of those shows and get that content that's really, really good in front of more eyes, please do it. Please. It's really good stuff.
And this is probably marketing advice that we should be listening to as the USL show now that I think about it, huh?
Yeah, I'm really bad about that, huh?
if we're gonna kind of pivot into league-wide specific resolutions, is for my first one for me is now that we have an expanded Jägermeister Cup, the easy thing is just can we upgrade the trophy from a platter to like an actual cup, like just something to kind of like really mark the occasion and have it be larger, but also kind of on a more on the field level. I hope a lot of the USL Championship teams take this competition incredibly seriously, like we saw within League One, because it is a very good opportunity for USL League One teams to come up and say, hey, the gap between the Championship and League One isn't as large as some of these teams like to think that it is. And John, you had pointed out in your article that you expect a lot of USL League One teams to do fairly well in this competition. And if you're a championship team, you don't want to be shown up by a League One side. And like if we're looking through all the groups, that New England group plus Detroit City is my most anticipated group to watch.
It will feed families. It will feed families. I circled that one. If purely for the environments alone, that was that group 4, group 5, whichever one it is, that New England plus Detroit, it is it plus Pittsburgh. Oh, chef's kiss. It's going to be so good. Yeah, that's another heed the warning. Hey, yes, I just want to throw it out to the championship teams. This is my resolution to you. Not only do you take it seriously, this is not like US Open Cup, midweek, we're tired, whatever. And it's going to be a match congestion, whatever. It's built into your season. You're not playing any more matches than you would have before. And those League One teams, I hate to throw it out there, championship teams, there's some League One teams that are much better than your team. Straight up. And if you don't get serious, you're not just going to lose. You are going to get embarrassed. Absolutely embarrassed. So take it seriously, because those League One teams, hey, objects are closer than they appear. They are the real deal.
April 26th.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was going to say April 26th in Group 2 of the Jägermeister Cup, New Mexico United against Union Omaha is like first weekend. Is a game I have circled.
How mean is it that they put El Paso and Omaha in the same group? It's bullying at this point.
Storylines
July 26th.
Storylines write themselves. It's fine. What about some others? Do we have any more?
I've got a couple more championship ones lingering, and with all the love to our boy Ben in the chat, if you're Charleston, just going to add some scoring depth. I think the defensive core is looking great already. You've got MD Myers back, and that's huge in the attack. Who is going to be the guy that steps up and fills about 30 goals worth of Nick Markanek in that team? Open question right now. So fill that out. Make sure that you've got the weapons, because as long as Ben Pierman has like half talented players, you're going to have a good team. Just make sure he's got the options and got the depth that they can replace that scoring load.
I want to ask a sick question. How well would a Cal Jennings fill that role?
I mean, it would be a fundamentally different system. Like, we've seen him play a little bit of right winger at times in Tampa Bay to pretty poor effect. It would be much more of a 4-4-2 look, which is something that traditionally, I don't know, Pierman doesn't tend to prefer. But if anybody can like just pull off that switch, and can you imagine the partnership between Myers and Jennings up top with Juan David Torres and Aaron Malloy feeding them? Like, that's money. That is such a good team. I am curious to see where Jennings goes. Just like overall, you kind of wonder like what's going on with that situation. But no, I like the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was just kind of thinking, because listen, obviously if you had to choose between the 30 goal a season versus a 15 goal a season person, yeah, you pick and choose. But with as dangerous as Charleston is, with as much as they can do from literally everybody on the field, do they need the 28 goal a season guy? I don't think so. I think they can. I think if you reduce that number down to a 15 goal a season guy, I still think they're coming in as the second or third best team in the league. Or in the East, sorry. I don't know. I mean, obviously you want you want a Nick Marcanic. I don't think you need it.
Yeah, and Nicholas in the chat points out the addition of Douglas Martinez, who I really like and I think is an excellent player, but he also hasn't scored more than 5 goals in a season since 2019. But he can be part of that supporting cast. And that's kind of what I was trying to get at with this point of Marcinic is going to be irreplaceable, but as long as you have that bevy of options and you kind of let like Wanda V. Torres get his natural growth, you let this team develop their chemistry, I think it can go a long way.
And I know you said a couple of the championship ones, but I'm just going to go ahead. It's a new year. We can. Rorel, hi. Hello. We're going to have, now I want to say the full conversation because we're about an hour into this, but I want to just throw it out there, USL. Be actually transparent. Be actually transparent about it. And John, you had a great interview that you wrote about Backfield. I'm not going to spoil any of that because you should pay for that. And Jägermeister is not supposed to be a pro rel replacement, but be honest. Don't say we are voting for pro rel at the next meetings. We are voting to vote on it next year. Like, be honest. Just be honest. Say it's not happening within the next 5 years, or say, no, we are actually taking this seriously because the dragging people along, carrot in front of the stick. I'm just sick of it. I'm tired. I'm just tired. Just be honest, please.
And that does kind of go back to what we've said about a lot of clubs of just be transparent with the fan base. We're all going to be understanding, I guess, either way, a shot of Jägermeister, if you will, of just whatever decision it is. And I think a lot of fans at this point are at least accepting of pro rel may not be the most realistic thing right now for USL, and it may never be something that realistically happens, but just be honest with the fan base on if we're actually going to be serious about it or if we're just going to keep kicking the can down the road.
John, you say a couple more championship.
Yeah, I mean, if you're Sacramento, I've kind of been harping on this point since they made the coaching change, but make the Neil Collins hire worth it. Like, moving away from Mark Briggs was a big call. Paying a transfer fee to get Neil Collins in the door was an even bigger call, frankly. He's a coach with a nearly unmatched track record in recent years in the USL. Support him, let him do what he needs to do in the market, and be patient if it takes a little bit of time for it to kind of gel and coalesce as he figures out how he makes his mark relative to what we've seen from the Briggs team. Because on paper, the Mark Briggs kind of 3-4-3, 3-5-2 isn't that dissimilar from the system that Neil Collins ran for quite a while in Tampa Bay. Something is going to have to give, so give him the time to figure out what that means.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Ryan. You were going to say something.
Just that when the announcement of Wraith Rovers having their manager bought out was announced on the Scottish football subreddit, it was really entertaining to see a lot of the Scottish football fans completely unaware that there were USL Championship teams who could outspend some of the Scottish Championship teams, and just seeing everyone kind of like come to terms with it. Obviously, there were a few curse words from the Wraith Rovers fans. It was just something entertaining to see. So if you go back onto my second favorite subreddit, it's a really entertaining thread.
Honestly, by the way, I want to throw it out there with the Neil Collins thing. The inclusion in their own Wraith Rovers' own article of saying we tried to convince him to stay and he said no. That was crazy. But seriously, make it worth it. And I think it's going to be really easy for outsiders to say it all fell apart when Roro left. When I say left, he got hurt, right? It all fell apart when Roro got hurt. It wasn't really on when he was in. Like we said before he was hurt that they were sleepwalking. Like they just felt like they were never getting into gear. And I don't want this to be mean at all, but I do kind of hope for the players that are coming back that Briggs getting fired was a wake up call for them. I really do, because it really felt like they were just like, well, we're more talented than everybody else. We will be just fine. We'll get into the playoffs and we'll be just okay. I mean, dude lost his job. One of the best managers in the league lost his job because of just overall sleepwalking. I think that they needed a real wake up call, and getting Neil Collins is a fantastic, fantastic signing. But, again, make it worth it. Wake up. Stop sleepwalking everywhere.
And we've got a comment in the chat. Where's the love for RIFC? I think the problem with like a resolutions theme thing is it kind of implies that there's a problem with the team.
Yeah.
If you're Rhode Island, who's opening a brand new stadium, you've kept the coaching staff, like 10 of your 11 championship game starters are back. You've got Maxi, you've got Hugo Bacharach. Like everything about Rhode Island is cooking right now. So keep doing what you're doing is the resolution.
If we're going to look at other teams in the Eastern Conference, or at least one team that's always been historically successful that I'm keeping an eye on this year, it's going to be Louisville. I mean, they were practically in uncharted waters of not finding themselves in the Eastern Conference final at the end of this season. So how do you come back from what was already a very successful regular season to, okay, can you come back and just reclaim the crown of the not just the Eastern Conference, but USL?
Yeah, on them. They were also in uncharted waters for, despite all their success, they won the first ever Players Shield in their history. Like, they were so hot and so dominant. I had a resolution for them that I put on Soccer Down Here, and I'm just be honest. Hey, guys, lose a little weight. They have a lot of players that they don't use. And I'm not trying to say don't hoard good players because, then good players go to other teams that's more competitive. But I feel like at times they were rotating the team purely because they had so many good players. And sometimes it felt like it kind of got their rhythm off. And I say that as a team that won the Players' Shield. Maybe I'm just completely speaking on my tail. But there were matches where they were really dominant. And it felt like they kind of let off the gas because they were just trying to get rotation in. And there were times where they had matches that just did not go well because they did not get rotation in. And then you look at the match where they lost to Rhode Island, when they lost the first time at Lynn Family, that was a 5-3 match. And, the whole conversation was, well, we had to go to Charleston. Then we had to go to Rhode Island. You had a squad of like 37 people. If you're going to have a roster that big, use it or lose the weight. You can sell some of those players. You can get rid of some of those players because I feel like they got to a point where they were too big to handle almost.
Well, it's an interesting thing because at the point where they paid the release clause to get Philip Goodrum in the door, I kind of assumed that was a sign of, okay, Wilson Harris is going to be moving on and we're just paying in advance to kind of get the replacement. The fact that that hasn't happened as of yet, and yes, it's a long off season, but they've kept Ray Serrano. They're facing down Adrian Perez and now Manny Perez with full preseasons. This is going to be just as crowded a team in most areas as we saw last year. For me, I completely agree with you, but it's also odd given that they basically don't have like a proper proven senior goalkeeper right now. That should be a spot where they are doing everything they can to try to find a long-term solution, frankly.
Yeah. Well, with all of that, do we have any others that we want to throw out there?
I don't know how to phrase it as a resolution, but the whole New Mexico going and getting Dennis Sanchez thing is a statement for that club. And I think it's something that is showing that they're trying to take the next step, make sure that they are hyper successful as they try to build towards the new era with the stadium. Sanchez was somebody who you have to figure was on decent enough money in Las Vegas. And from everything you heard from the conversation I had with him, you could tell he was really bought into the vision at that team. For New Mexico to go and get them is a statement in terms of their financial resources, yes, but it's also the vision that they're selling and saying, we're going to let you have a philosophy, we're going to support that, and we're going to try to take New Mexico United as far as we possibly can. real statement of intent from that club and something exciting to focus on this year.
Especially with New Mexico's first 5 games of the season, you open the year with 2 road games at Sacramento with the new Neil Collins at the helm. Then you have Dennis Sanchez's return to Las Vegas at the second game, El Paso for just kind of the rivalry match there. Don't worry about Miami FC in between. But then, and as your 5th game, you have Colorado Springs in a road match up against the league champions and someone who won the Western Conference last year, something that New Mexico probably expected to at least win last season. So it really is a very big test for Dennis Sanchez to come in and prove that he is the guy for New Mexico United.
I saw a little bit of confusion about the Dennis Sanchez leaving Las Vegas, and I think people need to be reminded that New Mexico, despite what the lab looks like, I mean, the field conditions are rough at best. New Mexico otherwise spends. They spend. They have invested. I want you to go look at their 2022 roster that they had. That did not do too hot. Boy, did they spend on that roster. They spent so much money on that roster. They have spent. They invest. And we talk about Las Vegas is on the up and up. They are on the up and up. But going from Las Vegas that are fighting to get a reputation in their town again, where you're looking at maybe 5,000 on crowd, go to New Mexico where they're averaging over 10,000 people, and the lab is one of the best, if not the best atmospheres in all of the USL. It's hard to say no to that. It's so hard to say no to that. I mean, you can say, well, maybe this Las Vegas team is going to be better than New Mexico's. Maybe. But just match day vibes itself, you don't say no. I really love New Mexico, what they've done. And I think if you really think objectively, it was still a no-brainer from Dennis Sanchez, although it probably was hard for him to leave.
Certainly, and I was just kind of building off your point. Like New Mexico is certainly in that realm of clubs where if they come calling, it really is tough to turn them down.
I'm going to have one last resolution, and this is going to be for USL League 2 and W League. We have to make it mandatory for every club to stream things. You have to. It has to be done. Like, I am so tired of not being able to watch clubs. One thing that I have done in the past is I would watch a match from each division every single week. So, like, that's 8-9 matches of League 2, and same thing for W League, where I would watch one just to get an idea. And there were some weeks where there are 0 matches from an entire division in League 2 or W League, because it just happens to be that the home teams that don't stream anything were hosting. You got to make it mandatory for every single club to stream. There are so many ways to do it now. I mean, if you really want to halfway do it, buy a StreamYard account, buy a camera, follow everything around. There are ways to do it. We cannot let these great talents go unseen. It just can't happen anymore.
That's fair. I'm playing the mental devil's advocate game of, if you're a USL League 2 team, and let's throw out a big fake number and say it takes $10,000 to make a decent streaming setup. Is that money better served in terms of growing your club and engaging the community by hosting a bunch of youth camps, by trying to market your team locally in a way where, let's be real, there's like 5 sickos who would be watching the stream of Seacoast United Phantoms. You know what I mean? So I think I think overall is like trying to make USL League 2 a pipeline to bigger and better things. It's an important step. But I see why, if you're a club who's arguing against it, like, there is fair logic.
But to kind of go, against your own devil's advocate point, one way to build your club is to have your talent be seen, right? I mean, think about little kids, right? You show them something like to like a 10-year-old, and you say, you will be on TV. And is TV YouTube? Yeah. But that gets them excited. I mean, put a camera on any child at any sporting event, and it's the highlight of their day. That is what they live for. You tell them, hey, when you grow up, you're the soccer boy right now. Like, you're the ball boy right now. But in like 6 years, you'll be on TV. That's enough to get them to join. And if you're a parent who's trying to weigh, do I want my kid to go through this? Do I want to pay these academy fees? Knowing that a college coach can just turn on a YouTube live stream or go watch a recap or whatever, like watch the replay of the live stream, and my kid can be noticed, that makes that a lot easier, and you get more investment into your club that way too.
For sure.
But that is, and because we do have Loudon in here, and I see the Loudon stuff in the chat, you are the people's champs, but we can only do the song and dance for 3 years. I have been convinced for 3-4 years now that you are one piece away. So can we please do something? Make a bigger statement. You've done a lot, but we need another statement signing. Bringing back Velo, bringing back Faru, those are great. But I need statements. I need big statements from you guys. I need anything. Make me believe that you have taken the next step, because I've been ready for the next step for the last 3 years.
Yeah, and we got the hot take in the chat from FFSDCU, which is a great username. That Loudon, if they don't get into the playoffs, they think Ryan Martin should be sacked. As probably the patron saint of Ryan Martin fans in the USL ecosystem, I think he's a terrific manager who's done a lot with few resources over the years. Sometimes change is needed, and if this is the season that Loudon misses yet again, I think it probably is time for a change.
And at least Ryan Martin would have a local politician career wardrobe to fall back on.
Amazing.
Any last ones from you guys? Do we have any other resolutions? No.
Well, resolution for the listener: keep listening to the USL show.
Keep listening, please. We really need it. How about some personal ones? Do we have some personal resolutions from you guys?
We're going to go ahead and just steal this from Ben Clemens, that I will watch the Sonic movies this year.
Love it. But this is definitely end of show topic, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I went to Topgolf for the first time the other day. Was a good time. They have a Sonic game. Did you know they have other games besides get the ball into the target? Because I didn't. They have a Sonic game, and it's basically a masqueraded version of a longest drive competition where you're trying to hit the ball into rings, and the farther it goes, the more rings you get. And so it's basically just a longest drive comp. But it was fascinating trying to figure out how to play the Sonic game at Topgolf.
Amazing.
Yeah. What about some other personal resolutions?
I will say I'm just not a resolution guy. I never do them. I feel culturally shamed for not doing them, but that's me.
That's totally fair.
I mean, I guess from my for my resolutions is to decorate my apartment a little bit more. I have a lot of stuff that are still in boxes from when I moved 2 months ago, and every time I see it in my living room, I was like, I'm gonna get around to hanging that photo up or displaying my scarf rack. And I just when the day comes that I have time to do it, I'm like, not today. So doing a start on a lot more projects and stuff that I have in background, and just continuing to run.
What you can't see, Ryan, is I have 7 paintings that are laying on the floor that have been laying in the same exact spot for the last 4 months. Great. Everything's fine. I guess personal resolution. I honestly, this is not a lose weight thing. I just need to eat better. Just eat better. I'm not trying to be super fit, do whatever. I did the vegetarian pescatarian thing for 2 years. I don't need to do that again. I just need to eat better, because boy, is fast food convenient. And if McDonald's could just stop being so daggum yummy, that'd be great. I say that. I don't go to McDonald's much, but anyway, the point's still there. I eat better food is definitely what I need to do. How about just some personal things? What have y'all been watching? What are some final thoughts of the night?
So I'm typically not much of a crier, but I watched E.T. yesterday for the first time since I was a child. Dude, the last 20 minutes or so of that movie just like knocked me off my feet. Like I was a mess. What like something about that just cracked into me emotionally, and I was done for.
Honestly, that's so fair.
Yeah.
That's so fair. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think back towards just films and everything that I had watched in 2024, and it really just occurred to me that I only saw like two movies in theaters, and it was Dune Part 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. So I definitely want to get to more films in 2025, and it already seems like it's going to be setting up to be a fairly good year of films coming out. And I'd have to say that my most anticipated one is going to be Superman in July. The trailer has already looked phenomenal. It has the classic music of the soundtrack for it, and it looks exciting. So 2025 should be a really anticipated year for films.
Lovely. Right now, me and the wife are rewatching Gilmore Girls, and
There we go.
I was going to bring this up anyway. It's funny that you brought it up, John. We got to spoilers, people. We got to Rory graduating high school, and she did her valedictorian speech, and it had me an absolute mess. Like it was bad. It was really bad. I don't remember that speech or watching it before, and ugh, it was a rough time for me. And I was like, this is a show about small town New England. I should not be feeling things. I should just be feeling fall vibes, and instead I'm hurting. But it's okay.
It's like this child is resurrecting an alien with the power of love, and here I am falling.
Well, thank you guys so much for hopping on. It's good to see you guys again. It was an absolute blast. I'm not going to do that. I haven't seen you in a year, but it has been like 3 weeks. And so that feels like a year to me. And to the people who are in the live chat, thank you so much for hopping on. We really do appreciate it. For the people who are watching on the podcast players, keep on supporting, keep on showing the love. We love you. We mean it. And for the first and final time of night, here's Alan's voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show. The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.